Hey guys, what's happening? It's Dean from Electronisounds. Stick around. Today I'm going to show you how you can use an app on the iPad called to creatively sequence drum beats on a retro groove box like this old Electribe here. Stick around, guys.
Electronisounds audio. You know you need to watch that YouTube channel.
We're going to jump right into this today, guys. So I'm going to assume that you already know how to connect your iPad to an audio interface. If you don't, I've got a video. I'll put a link to it up here in the corner that'll help you get that connected. I'm also going to assume that you already know how to get 5-pin MIDI talking to your iPad. And if you don't know how to do that, I'm going to put a link to a video that I've made on that to get you going as well. Let's jump into this, guys. To get this set up properly, guys, you might need to actually dig into the reference manual for your gear. The reference manual for this old Electribe actually details what note numbers each of the drum sounds is on. And this is the information that you're going to be looking for inside of your reference manual for whatever gear you're trying to sequence. Now, some gear is going to work to where, each sound, each drum sound or whatever is going to have a different note number on the same MIDI channel. Whereas some other retro pieces of gear, for instance, like the Digitact here, are not going to work with a method like this, because on the Digitact, every of its 8 sounds responds to a specific MIDI channel. They're not MIDI note numbers on the same MIDI channel, but each sound gets transmitted into the Digitact on a different MIDI channel. So you'll need to make sure that you're dealing with something where you can actually have complete MIDI note number control over the sounds. All of the vintage Electribes work this way. So for instance, the Electribe ESX1 here, SX1 here works that way as well, to where you can, put whatever sounds on these pads you want and then sequence them out using this method. You could even use, like a sampler, like the Akai MPC Live to do something like this as well. Okay, I've gone ahead and got a blank pattern here on the Electribe, and I've got some drum and bass drum sounds assigned to the pads. And that's what we're going to be sequencing out in I've told the Electribe to respond to external MIDI clock signal so that I can send a tempo to the Electribe from inside of and we're going to get that set up now, guys. The first thing we'll do, guys, is we'll go ahead and get this tempo up to about a drum and bass tempo. So we're going to bring the tempo here up to 172 beats per minute. We're going to click on the little 3 dots here on the side to get our options up. And we're going to go ahead and click on where it says Send MIDI Clock. And we're going to choose whatever device is connected with 5-pin MIDI out from your iPad. Currently, I'm using an iRig MIDI 2 to send MIDI, to transfer the signal to 5-pin MIDI from the iPad. So I'm going to go ahead and select that now, and the send MIDI clock is on. So now when I press play over here on the sequencer will automatically start over here on the Electribe, and you can see that it is in fact moving along with the sequencer that we're the MIDI clock that we're sending it from Okay, so step 1, check. I suppose step 2 would be to make sure that you know what MIDI channel your unit is receiving on. So if we go over here to the global menu and I go down, I can see that these drum sounds here are responding to MIDI channel number 10. So I'm going to use that information as we set this up in the iPad. The sequencer that we're going to be using today, guys, is from Grooveboxes, and it's the Rosetta sequencer suite. We're going to go ahead and open up an audio track here. We're going to go down to audio unit extension, and we're going to scroll down, and we're going to go ahead and load the Rosetta XOX instrument. And what we're going to do, guys, is we're just going to go ahead and open this up, right? And we're going to go down to the MIDI settings window where you can see the little 5-pin MIDI icon in the corner. And we're going to click on that. We're by default set to output channel 10. And that's what I verified that our Electribe is receiving on. So that's good to go there. Now if we click on the little star icon here, it's going to give us the note numbers, the MIDI note numbers on the keyboard that each of the sounds inside of this sequencer are going to respond to. Now this sequencer allows us to sequence 8 sounds. They don't have to be be drum sounds. It's just kind of set up for that. I do plan at some point to do a tutorial where I'm showing how to use stuff like this to sequence like other samples inside of maybe like the Akai MPC Live. But I'm going to use the reference manual here, and we're going to go through and we're going to map these notes to the corresponding notes inside of the reference manual here. So on the bass drum, let's see here, part 1, so that's note number 36. So we're going to go down here and make this 36. Number 2 is 38. Now that we have the MIDI note numbers inside of the XOX sequencer, sending the proper note numbers to the Electribe, we just need to route this sequencer to send its MIDI information out to the Electribe. And what we'll do is we'll just click the MIDI routing tab up here, which is a really magical and ever-expanding screen inside of OM, that the more things you load in here, the more things you'll be able to route in here. And what we want to do, guys, is we want to take the Rosetta suite here, XOX, and we want to route that to whatever is sending MIDI out of your iPad, which for me is this iRig MIDI 2. So I'm sending here in the screen, I'm assigning that the Rosetta XOX should send to the iRig MIDI 2, okay? And let's test that out now. If I go ahead and put in, let's say, a kick drum pattern here and press play, we should hear the Electribe start playing along with this. And in fact, we are currently sequencing the Electribe, guys. Let's see here. Put some hats in, yeah. So right off the jump, it's pretty simple to get a pattern going using the XOX sequencer, guys. But here's where things get exciting, where we can start making different patterns and assigning those patterns to do different things for us. Let me go ahead and show you that. You may have heard a few extra drum notes coming through than what we had just programmed. I found out that I had left some motion sequence data on inside of the Electribe, which was altering the pitch and delay timing of a couple of the effect sounds, drum sounds rather. So that's been cleaned up now, and now we're hearing just the clean signal from the Electribe. What we can do, guys, is we can take this pattern that we've created and we can copy it and we can paste it into the second one. Now, an interesting thing here you'll notice is that each drum sound has a knob above it that says MUT, and that stands for mutate. And basically, these mutate settings are stored inside of the individual patterns. So for instance, if we go back to pattern 1, all those mutates are down. And if we go to pattern 2, all those mutates are up. It might be a little bit chaotic to leave a beat with all of those mutates up. So maybe we'll just take the kick drum and leave that all the way down and try it here. That is doing a lot of random stuff there. Now, what you can do is you can change these how the sequences trigger. You can trigger this stuff with a MIDI sequencer. But what I like to do is to program these settings inside of the XOX sequencer manually. So we're going to choose Go to Other, and that means it's going to play this pattern, and it'll go to any other pattern, not this one, but any other pattern after however many loops we tell it. I'm going to say after one time playing through to go to any other pattern on the sequencer, and I'm going to do the exact same thing for our pattern 1 here. Go to Other and trigger after one time through. Now, if I choose Go to Any as opposed to Go to Other, it has the option to potentially play the same one twice in a row. And I'm really wanting that random, back and forth sort of a thing here. And let's press play, and it's going to, there's only 2 patterns programmed so far, but it's currently going to start shifting between those 2 patterns. You see it's highlighting 2 there. So on the downbeat, on the downbeat of every measure, it's switching back and forth between these patterns now. And the cool thing about this is that since we've got these random mutations up on pattern 2, our beat is completely evolving now. It's just going to go back and forth and always play a little bit something different on measure 2. Another way that you can utilize this, guys, is to make a 4-bar pattern and tell your first pattern to trigger the next one after, let's say, 3 loops. Okay, so it'll play this pattern 3 times: 1 2 3 4, 2 2 3 4, 3 2 3 4, and then for the 4th bar it will play another pattern. Currently we only have one other pattern. It's set to play for 1 bar and then play to it, go to other. So when this pattern plays, it by default will go back to that first pattern. So currently this is creating a 4-bar loop. 2 2 3 4, 3 2 3, and change. Now we go to 2 1 1 and 2. Let's listen to that for a minute. Fantastic. So we've got a beat that's evolving and changing over time. One of the things you can do, guys, is maybe we'll copy our second pattern. Maybe we'll paste that into a third pattern here. And maybe we'll, take some of these mutation, settings, and we'll change them up a little bit. I don't know. And maybe we'll, change the pattern that we've programmed here as well. Maybe we'll put in, a couple of different kick drums, then leave that one different this time, and put one there. Maybe put an extra snare drum at the end. Maybe just put like some more hi-hats in. Maybe put an open hat in. Maybe here and there, I don't know. And now what we can do is, again, we'll make sure that this is set to trigger after 1 loop. It's going to go to other. So actually we need to change that now, because if it goes to other, it might go to the second pattern rather than the first pattern. So that's pretty simple, guys. We're going to change these 2 and 3, or every subsequent pattern, to change, go to other. We're going to go to first instead. And now after 3 bars of playing pattern 1, it will play either pattern 2 or pattern 3 1 time and then go back to pattern 1. So we've still got a 4-bar pattern, guys, but it's changing quite a bit more. Do you hear how the roll on bar 4 is changing every time, guys? That's because of the mutate feature. Now, how might we actually utilize something like this in a, in a musical context rather than just a fun sound designing context? One of the things you can do, guys, is you can assign, your output of your hardware device here into like a portable recorder. You can run this audio into your iPad and record it there. But the key is that you're going to want to record this audio, and that's where this gets really super fun. Let me switch this over just a little here, because you can start tweaking these knobs in real time. You can change pitches, you can tweak effects, and you can record all of that in. One of the things I like to do is to separate the drums into, like, maybe put the kick drum on its own channel, when I'm recording stuff. So what I might do is select the main kick drum in something like this and take its volume and turn it all the way down. And now what I'm getting is just top loops, basically, that are going to, be a shifting and changing thing. Then I might sample the kick drum out on its own, and you can program that over chop out your favorite bits of top loop. The key here is that this is going to create stuff that you typically might not program yourself when sitting in front of a, XOX style sequencer like this, using these sort of mutate features and the way that you can set the, the sequencer up to switch patterns and, keep evolving as you're going. Or you don't have to record it out. You can just use this. Let's say you're doing a live jam with a lot of pieces of gear. This could just be one element of that live jam. You know what I mean? Something else that's creative and fun to do with a setup like this, guys, is if you turn the external MIDI clock off of something like this, now when we play the patterns, when I shift patterns, like it's not going to press play on the Groovebox itself. It's only going to expose the sounds that are in that pattern. That might not make any sense. Let me show you what I mean, guys. Here we're playing the sounds that are on pattern 2. I haven't changed anything over on the iPad side of things. All we've done is just, randomly pick a different sound set. Same thing here. Then depending on what box you're using to sequence with, these sounds could be a little bit more modern or even a little bit more dated, depending on the tools that you're working with. You can see how you can, there's 256 patterns and sound sets inside of this box alone. So you can see how really quickly you could get quite a bit of variation on what, what the drums are going to sound like. You could always do some recording and then mix and match a lot of the outputs. It's just a really creative way to get some results that you might not get when you're just sitting down to program things out manually. And especially if you know your box and you're able to do some pitch tweaking and maybe effects tweaking in real time as you're recording the result. And then you can just take those bits of audio that you've recorded, load them into your DAW of choice, or maybe your, sampling Groovebox of choice, chop that stuff up, and use it creatively to actually write some stuff with. I hope you guys have found this useful, and until next time, thanks for watching.